Close your eyes, clear your mind, calm your heart. We are open to new ideas. Welcome to the Z-Axis, a podcast for data storytelling and beyond. I'm your host, Zachary Johnson. Thank you for joining me. As always, you can email me at zjjohnsonllc@gmail.com. My LinkedIn is in the show notes, and a link to my course, Data Storytelling for Business. Let's start episode 2, Zeno's Ethos. A while back, there was this older Reddit post that caught my attention. Not because it was trending, but because it was linked to a Wikipedia article about an emperor named Zeno. Yes, Emperor Zeno. A Roman, or more accurately, Byzantine emperor. And if you're uninitiated into Roman history, don't worry, you won't need to be. I wasn't always either. I'll drop the link to the wiki in the show notes for you who wants to go and check it out yourself. And yes, I know the meme. A man turns 40 and he just starts getting into Roman history and smoked meats. Guilty. I'm a walking, talking, nerding cliche. And yet, travel back in time with me. Let's see how the principles of data storytelling, yes, data storytelling, play out across the centuries. Maybe we'll even walk away with a bit of more empathy, relevant to right now. It starts with a game. Tabla. My Greek relatives would still call it tabli. If you're an American, you probably know it as backgammon. This was the year 480 AD, so the rules were different, but conceptually, it's the same game. For those who don't know, backgammon is a game of dice, decision-making, and controlled chaos. You try to get your pieces through a gauntlet of positions before your opponent does. You protect them, you expose them, you take risks, all based on the roll of the dice and your judgment in response. Let's start with what we know. And yes, this is all sourced, though I'm not a historian. I'm okay with Wikipedia for the purpose of talking about data storytelling. From several sources, we know the Emperor Zeno loved to play tabla. We know he lost a particular game of tabla sometime around 480 AD. The game was recorded immediately, but the account comes from about 100 years after. The rules of tabla were later reconstructed by historians from this specific epigram, that is, the visualization of the game. And crucially, we know exactly how he lost. We know the board state of the critical play, again, from the epigram. Now, here I'm going to go ahead and quote a passage from the Wikipedia article, which I find to be pretty precise and, dare I say it, a little poetic, so I'm okay with doing some quotes here. The earliest description of tabli is an epigram of Byzantine Emperor Zeno, given by Agathias of Marine, who describes a game in which Zeno goes from a strong position to a very weak one after an unfortunate dice roll. In the epigram, Zeno was white and had 1 point with 7 pieces on it, 3 points with 2 pieces, and 2 singletons. Zeno threw the 3 dice, 2, 5, and 6. The only way to use all the 3 results was to break the 3 points with 2 pieces into singletons, thus exposing them to capture and ruining the game for Zeno. Let's translate that into brutal honesty. He lost. But now you're asking me, why are we talking about an ancient game of backgammon? Because that's what we do here at the Z-Axis, and it's my show, and I like it that way. But also because we just had a voice of an emperor from 1,550 so years ago echo forward through time to tell us how he felt about a probabilistic event. Ever had a buddy text you after losing a bet on the Vikings? Side note, being a Vikings fan is rough business. That's what this is. It's a bad beat story. But from a culture so distant, a time so far gone, it shouldn't be relatable. But it still is. That's ethos, logos, and pathos coming together in a form we now call data storytelling. It's a probabilistic event. And how did that connection come to us? Through a visualization, a description of a board state, an epigram so specific that historians reconstructed the game centuries later. Now imagine the reverse. You give a presentation tomorrow on, say, the predicted price of corn on the grain exchange. You include a few charts, some graphics, the rationale. You explain what happened recently and why, and what you believe might come next. And then, 1,500 years from now, someone finds your chart. They understand your reasoning, your intentions, maybe even your frustration. That's data storytelling through time. Now, let's pause and start to think like detectives. Maybe, just maybe, with a little empathy. Here's the question. Why did Emperor Zeno want his game recorded at all? He rolls, he loses, maybe he curses, throws his hands in the air, tosses the board, doesn't really matter. But why record the loss? I don't generally go about shouting my losses. It's not a thing we do. Why does this event survive over 1,000 years, passed down from scribe to historian? Was it pride? Was it politics? I mean, imagine the moment. Bah, that's ridiculous! I can't believe it! Andronicus! Andronicus, bring the scribe! I want this game state recorded, stored, and copied! Sounds ridiculous when I say it like that. But that's the sense we have here of he wanted this game state copied, stored, for some reason. So let's have a guess with a little empathy. Because again, they were humans, we're humans, we're not that different from them. In fact, we're entirely similar. He was mad. He didn't like losing. Worse, he was winning until that cruel twist of the dice. He wasn't foolish. He made good decisions. He played well. This loss wasn't his fault. It was chance, probability, unfairness. But still, he was an emperor. And that's where context matters. Byzantine emperors were considered God's vice-regents on earth. It's a heady position and a heady title. And again, in the 480s, this is a time when omens and signs weren't just superstition, they were cosmic truth. A bad roll wasn't just bad luck, it was a symbol. A bad roll for the emperor was a bad roll for the state. It could mean that they were losing God's faith. God was no longer pleased with the emperor. It could have all kinds of symbolic meanings to have this happen. What if rumors spread? What if people laughed at him? Did you hear the emperor lost so badly at Tabla? No. That couldn't stand. The game must be properly recorded with the right framing. I played well. The strategy was sound. The loss? A fluke, an outlier, not a reflection on my judgment, not a reflection on my relationship with God. Let the record show that. Side note, think about the epigram for a second. Who is it for? He could have just written it down in writing. But no, they made a very clear, succinct visualization. So maybe even the non-literate could understand it? That's a choice of who they're making it for. I don't know what it's like to be God's vice-regent. Nope. but I do know what it's like to want to prove your credibility, your ethos, when your outcome doesn't go your way. So imagine you're a CEO today, or a product manager, or just someone giving a quarterly update to your team, and the outcomes objectively weren't great. But you know your decisions were sound. You're not alone. You're the latest in a long, unbroken chain of professionals, leaders, analysts, emperors, trying to show that their judgment was sound even when the dice didn't land their way. So the next time you're called upon to present poor results, think of Emperor Zeno. Think of that game of tabla. Think of the story that he told that survived over 1,000 years. And just know that you're not alone. Things sometimes just don't work out. Thanks for joining me and listening to the Z-Axis. Let me know what you thought of the episode. Let me know what you think about Emperor Zeno or the ideas brought forward for data storytelling. My contact information is zjjohnsonllc@gmail.com. Of course, you can see my LinkedIn in the show notes and the link to my Data Storytelling for Business course. Please consider taking the course. Subscribe and join me for the next episode. Until then, may your choices be wise, your logic strong, and your meetings short.